Hey guys, we are Channel Hop and this is our Sprint 1 review. In this video, we'll talk through our sprint goal and definition of done, show the user stories each team member developed and some demos of our features, showing how each one met our definition of done. We'll wrap up with our updated burndown chart and what we learned to implement in Sprint 2. So our sprint goal is to allow the user to pause and resume the game, exit the game, see a health bar that updates during gameplay, have more than one different type of weapon, and have basic movement for enemies towards the user.
Hi, I'm John. I'm the Scrum Master of the Channel Hop team, and for Sprint 1, I worked on 3 user stories. The first is allowing users to respawn at checkpoints which are scattered around the map, so then they can continue playing after dying in the game. The initial progress was slow as my feature relied on the health bar that JC was implementing, so that led me to focus on the animation, so that when users run past the checkpoint pole, it activates an animation of a flag rolling out. Once JC was finished, I was able to complete my feature and I was able to meet the definition of done and move on to my second feature. Next was making my enemies move. The progress for this feature was relatively smooth and easy. I implemented it to allow the enemies to patrol a predefined path and turn back once it reaches the end. Enemies will also attack and inflict damage when players are within view and range. So this allows a more challenging and strategic gameplay for users. For my last user story, I created a feature allowing users to collect coins scattered around the map. This made the game more interactive and gives a user an objective to try and find all the coins. I added a count to the top right of the screen as well, which increments by 1 every time a player collects a coin. Again, the process for this user story was relatively smooth and I had no issues implementing it in the game. Once completed and then tested by JC, I was able to meet our definition of done.
Hello, my name is Lian and I am one of the developers in our Channel Hop team. During Sprint 1, I work on the user stories for the main menu, the attacking feature, the weapon equip feature, and the load and save feature. In the first week of the development stage, I mainly focused on the main menu, as it is supposed to give us a clear visual direction of where the game was heading. That part went really smoothly. Implementing it wasn't really too difficult since the scripts and logic behind it were simple and straightforward. The next things I worked on was the equip weapon feature and the attacking feature. I was able to implement almost everything that I had in mind for these features, spending about a week on each. The equipping feature didn't really give me that much trouble since it was quite straightforward. The only challenges I faced were with the visuals, specifically showing when the player could pick up an item, making it clear that they were holding it, and ensuring that 2 players could pick up different weapons independently. I was ultimately able to work around these issues and create a smooth, interactive, and visually appealing way to choose your weapons. The attacking feature, however, was much more challenging. Since I didn't really have any access to different supplies or materials to make it look like the player was actually attacking, I had to be creative with how the attack effects were represented visually. Most of the problems I faced with these 2 features were related to visual or graphics problems, but I managed to overcome them by being resourceful and making the most of what we had. The last feature I worked on was the save and load system, which was mostly on the back end of the game. I spent about a week working on this feature. This feature was relatively easy to implement since I was able to get help from multiple other sources. The save functionality was straightforward because I already knew in advance what we were saving for the values and the datas. The load feature, however, took a bit more time as I needed to rewrite and adjust the logic so all the saved values could be properly handled and initialized in the game.
Hi guys, my name is Ainara. I am one of the developers for the Channel Hop game. For the first sprint, I did the pause menu and the revive user story. In the pause feature, there will be a pause button accessible throughout the gameplay so that users' gameplay doesn't get interrupted while playing. When the pause button is clicked, the game freezes everything, the player, enemies, the traps. Then the pause UI will be visible and pause button will be disabled to prevent opening multiple pause panels. This feature has 3 buttons: resume, home, and respawn. Resume button, which obviously resumes the game from where the user left off and re-enables the pause button. Home button is for going back to the main menu, and the restart button teleports the player back to the respawn point whether or not they fled checkpoints. I also developed the revive user story so that when the user dies, they can continue their progress without starting from the beginning. I put this feature in the game over UI, which activates when either player 1 or player 2 reaches 0 HP. Once it's activated, the game freezes and both players will be unable to move. In this panel, I added the revive and exit buttons. When the revive button is clicked, it returns both of the players to the latest checkpoint, either of them flagged. Then resets their health back to full HP and the game continues. The exit button shows the main menu if the user wants to stop playing without saving any of their progress. The pause menu was pretty straightforward because none of its features were aligned with any other user stories to be finished. The home button just needed the main menu to exist, it didn't have to be completed. And by the time I was developing the Revive user story, anything that might have affected the development progress was already completed, like the checkpoint feature.
Yeah, I'm JC, I'm the product owner of the Channel Hop team. During Sprint 1, I started by working on the health bar feature for each player in the game. I worked on the UI and made sure that players lose hearts every time that they take damage, and also gain hearts every time that they collect a health collectible around the map. I also worked on the multiplayer feature of the game, which I had to develop closer to the end of the sprint. This is because we started with only one player, which I had to duplicate to create player 2, but I had to rely on other team members to finish working with the player, like John needed it for his checkpoint user story, so that I could work on implementing the multiplayer feature with the last player. The team and I agreed to make the game a local multiplayer, so two people could use the same keyboard with different keybinds to play. This was to keep it simple and also fulfill our initial plan for this game, which was to give it an arcade game feel. I got John to test both the health bar and multiplayer features and tick off their acceptance tests so they were able to meet the definition of done.
So our definition of done is when all acceptance tests for the feature are met successfully. The code for the feature has been written, it's been tested to ensure it functions smoothly, the feature is integrated into the project and works without breaking existing functionality. All changes to the project are committed and pushed to the repository, and that the whole team agrees that the feature is complete and ready for release.
So for resolving issues, whenever a team member had issues with anything during the project, we scheduled in-person sessions to address and resolve them together. In these sessions, we would try to work together to solve the issue. By doing them, we were able to handle any issues as soon as possible.
So for the burn down chart, so in the initial days of Sprint 1, the team was making progress on the user stories. However, some features relied on scripts being edited by other team members. So that caused a lot of delays in finishing some features in the beginning of our sprint. Initial merging of the scripts and scenes caused some conflicts, which delayed the development as well.
A significant amount of user stories were finished from days 7 to 9, showing a major drop in the burndown chart, indicating good progress. Around the middle of the sprint, progress slowed down as more conflicts with merging arose, and team members also having different deadlines for other projects. Nearing the end of the sprint, consistent effort was shown in finishing the remaining user stories to bring the total story points down to 0.
Some areas of improvements are merging conflicts. In Sprint 1, we ran into delays when merging scripts and scenes. We'll try to merge our work together more frequently in smaller chunks instead of waiting until a big piece of work is done. We also want to improve our time management. For Sprint 2, we'll schedule smaller and more working sessions. This will help us maintain steady progress and avoid the mid-sprint slowdowns we saw in Sprint 1.
Overall, Sprint 1 gave us a good foundation. For Sprint 2, our goal is to be more efficient, collaborate better with merging our work together, and keep a steady pace so we finish strong without rushing at the end.